The Galactic Council had ruled the Orion Arm for over 12,000 cycles. 47 advanced species, each bound by law and tradition, sat in the great circular chamber of the central nexus. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of gods. But they had never seen anything like the creatures that came from the small, blue planet at the edge of nowhere. The humans called themselves Terrans. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago, a blink in cosmic time. When their first ambassador arrived at the council, the other species laughed. The Vog'nath, a proud reptilian race with claws like war scythes, referred to the human as the naked ape. The Xylari, beings of living crystal, refused to even acknowledge the human's presence. And the Astrion, the oldest and most respected race, simply labeled humanity as faunaclass, non-sentient for diplomatic purposes. That was the day the conflict began. Ambassador Elena Vance stood at the human delegation's observation pod, watching the council's endless debates. She was a former military strategist turned diplomat, a woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much. Behind her, Admiral Marcus Thorne reviewed the latest reports. They've officially classified us as animals, Elena. Animals. We can't trade. We can't vote. We can't even claim territory beyond our solar system. Elena did not turn around. I know. Then you also know what that means, Marcus continued, his voice hard. Under council law, any animal species can be hunted for sport. Their planets can be claimed as preserves. Their people can be captured and sold as exotic pets or display specimens. Elena finally faced him. They called us animals, Marcus. They forgot one thing. What? She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Animals fight back. The Galactic Council's decree was published 3 standard days later. The declaration spread through the hyperwave channels like fire. Humanity was officially designated as a non-sentient, non-protected species. Hunting permits were issued immediately. The first hunt came within a week. A Xylari cruiser dropped out of warp above Mars. The Xylari were beings of pure silicon, immune to radiation and cold, armed with energy lances that could slice through steel. Their hunting party consisted of 12 warriors, each one 7 feet tall, their bodies gleaming like jagged diamonds. They had tracked a human cargo ship to the asteroid belt and intended to capture the crew alive. Live specimens fetched a high price at the galactic auctions. Captain Lira of the human vessel Perseverance received the warning from Mars Command. Xylari Hunter-Killer inbound. ETA 20 minutes. You are authorized to use any means necessary. Lira was not a soldier. She was a freighter captain, 52 years old, with 3 kids and a bad knee. But she had grown up on the frontier settlements of Titan, where children learned to shoot before they learned to read. Any means necessary, she repeated. Then she opened the armory. The Xylari boarding party sliced through the Perseverance's hull like it was tissue paper. They expected terrified animals hiding in corners. Instead, they found a ship that had gone dark, its corridors filled with thick smoke and the smell of ozone. The first Xylari warrior stepped through the breach and triggered a pressure mine. The explosion did not kill him. Xylari were too durable for that, but it blew off both his legs and sent him spinning into the void. The remaining 11 warriors advanced, their crystalline bodies glowing with combat energy. They were not afraid. They had never known fear. They had hunted the great sand WRMS of KXATH and the plasma eels of the Nebula Veil. What could a soft, pink primate possibly do? That was when the humans turned off the gravity. The Perseverance's artificial gravity generators reversed polarity. The Xylari, adapted to standard gravity and utterly unprepared for sudden weightlessness, floated upward, their energy lances firing wildly. Captain Lira and her crew, wearing magnetic boots and zero-G training from childhood, moved through the ship like ghosts. They did not use energy weapons. Too easy to trace. Instead, they used tungsten carbide spears, forged from asteroid mining drills. Simple, primitive, deadly. The second warrior died with a spear through his core, the tungsten cracking his silicon lattice. The third was dragged into an airlock and vented. The fourth, fifth, and sixth were separated and cornered in the engine room, where Lyra's engineer vented superheated plasma directly into their faces. Xylari could withstand vacuum and radiation, but superheated plasma at 5,000 degrees. That melted them into slag. When the Council's enforcement fleet arrived 6 hours later, they found 11 Xylari warriors dead and the 12th, the one who had lost his legs, drifting in a survival pod. He was babbling. Crystalline beings did not babble, but he kept repeating the same words. The animals are not animals. That was the first battle. It was not the last. Document 2. After the destruction of the Xylari hunting party, the Galactic Council faced an impossible truth. A species they had labeled animals had just slaughtered 12 of the finest warriors in the known galaxy. The Council could not admit that they had made a mistake. To admit a mistake would undermine 47 species' worth of political stability. So they did what all-powerful bodies do when confronted with inconvenient facts. They doubled down. The Astrion, the Ancient Ones, issued a new declaration. Humanity was not merely non-sentient. Humanity was a dangerous pest species. Pest species, under Council law, could be exterminated without warning. No hunting permits required. No limits. No oversight. The Vog'nath, eager to avenge their Xylari allies, and even more eager to claim human territories, launched the first extermination fleet. 15 ships, 3,000 warriors, plasma cannons, kinetic missiles, and a new weapon called the Mind Scourge, which was designed to attack the nervous system of any organic creature. The Vog'nath were confident. They had never lost a war. They did not understand that humans had been perfecting war since before they learned to write. Admiral Marcus Thorne stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution, humanity's first true warship. It was an ugly vessel, welded together from asteroid miners and cargo haulers, but it had teeth. Status? He asked. His tactical officer, a young woman named Chun, pointed to the holographic display. 15 Vog'nath vessels. They're spreading out to blockade Earth and Mars. The Mind Scourge is active. Our long-range comms are flickering. Marcus nodded. And the surprise? Chun smiled. Ready and waiting. The surprise was called the Ghost Drive. Human scientists, working in secret for a decade, had discovered a flaw in FTL technology that every other species had overlooked. When a ship jumped to warp, it left a temporary ripple in space-time, a ripple large enough for another ship to hide inside. The humans had learned to ride those ripples like surfers on a wave. Their ships could literally hide inside the warp shadows of enemy vessels, invisible to all sensors. The Vog'nath fleet passed the orbit of Jupiter, confident and blind. They did not notice the 12 human corvettes riding the ripples of their own engines. They did not notice until the corvettes dropped out of shadow and opened fire. The human weapons were crude by galactic standards. No antimatter. No singularity cannons. But they were effective. Railguns fired tungsten rods at a fraction of the speed of light, punching clean through Vog'nath hulls. Nuclear missiles, old-fashioned fission devices, detonated in proximity bursts, blinding sensors and frying electronics. And then the Marines boarded. The Vog'nath were reptilian, 12 feet tall, covered in armored scales, each one a living tank. They had never lost a boarding action. But the humans did not fight fair. They fought in the dark, using infrared goggles that the Vog'nath's heat-sensitive eyes could not counter. They used sound cannons that disoriented the reptiles' inner ears. They used sticky foam that hardened around limbs, trapping the massive warriors like flies in amber. And when all else failed, they used axes. Not energy axes. Not plasma blades. Simple, steel fire axes, the kind used by human firefighters for centuries. The Vog'nath scales could deflect lasers and shrug off plasma bolts, but a steel axe swung by a human in powered armor? The axe found the gaps between scales. The neck, the joints, the eyes. The Vog'nath commander, a warlord named Grash, fought his way to the bridge of the Retribution. He had killed 43 human soldiers to get there. His scales were cracked, his tail was severed, but he was still coming. Admiral Marcus Thorne met him in the corridor outside the bridge, armed with nothing but a standard-issue sidearm and a knife. Grash laughed. You send your leader to die alone? Marcus did not laugh. He shot out the lights. In the absolute darkness, Marcus moved. He had grown up in the caves of Luna, where children learned to navigate by sound and touch. He had spent 20 years in special forces, training in zero-gravity combat, underwater combat, combat in toxic atmospheres, combat while poisoned, bleeding, and half-blind. He had been trained to kill things bigger, stronger, and faster than himself. The knife went into Grash's left eye. The Warlord screamed, a sound that echoed through the ship. Marcus drove the blade deeper, twisted, and pulled. Grash fell. He did not get up. When the lights returned, the remaining Vog'nath saw their commander lying dead at the feet of a creature they had called a pest. They did not flee. They knelt. The Vog'nath culture had a word for what they witnessed, Kradhok. It meant the moment when a predator becomes prey. And in that moment, the hunters became the hunted. The battle lasted 11 hours. By the end, 14 of the 15 Vog'nath ships were destroyed. The 15th surrendered. 3,000 Vog'nath warriors attacked. Only 400 survived. The humans lost 2 corvettes and 600 soldiers. The Galactic Council received the news in stunned silence. The Astrion, for the first time in their long memory, requested a private meeting with the human ambassador. Elena Vance agreed to meet them, but she brought a gift. Document 3. The Astrion ambassador, a being named Seraphis, waited in the neutral zone. The Astrion were ancient, their bodies made of organic metal, their faces featureless except for a single glowing eye. They communicated through patterns of light and sound, a language that most species could never learn. Elena Vance had learned it in 3 months. She was that kind of human. Ambassador Vance, Seraphis projected. We have observed your species' actions. You fight with a savagery that is unexpected. Elena placed a small object on the table between them. It was a book. Physical paper, bound in leather. Seraphis tilted his head. What is that? A history book, Elena said. It contains the last 10,000 years of human warfare. Every battle, every genocide, every weapon we ever invented, and every reason why. Seraphis's eye glowed brighter as he scanned the book. The patterns of light flickered faster, then stopped. This is madness. You have fought more wars in 10,000 years than the Council has in 1,000,000. You have weapons that destroy planets. You have killed your own kind by the billions. Yes, Elena said quietly. We have. Then why are you proud of this? Elena leaned forward. Because we also learned from it. Every war, every atrocity, every mistake, we wrote it down. We taught it in schools. We made sure our children knew exactly what we were capable of, so they would never forget. The weapons you saw us use in the last 2 battles? Those are toys. We have things that would make your crystalline armor melt from sheer horror. But we don't use them, because we choose not to. Seraphis was silent for a long time. Then he said, You are not animals. Animals do not make choices. Animals simply are what they are. You are something else. We are what happens when a species refuses to die, Elena said. We are the survivors of 100 near extinctions. We are the ones who crawled out of caves, survived ice ages, outlasted plagues, and walked on our own moon with nothing but math and courage. You called us animals, Seraphis. But animals run from danger. Humans run toward it. That is the difference. The Astrion ambassador projected a new pattern, one that Elena had never seen before. It was the color of apology. What do you want, ambassador? Recognition, Elena said. Not as pets, not as pests, as equals, with all the rights and responsibilities that come with it. And one more thing. Name it. The hunting permits are canceled. All of them. And every species that participated in hunting humans. The Xylari, the Vog'nath, the Krell, the Marduk, they will pay reparations. Not in money. In territory. We want the colonies they took from us. And we want them to withdraw from our space. Seraphis's eye dimmed. That is a steep demand. The Council may refuse. Then the Council may burn, Elena said. And she meant it. The negotiations collapsed 3 days later. The Astrion tried to mediate, but the other species refused. The Xylari called for a full-scale war. The Vog'nath, humiliated, agreed. The Krell and the Marduk, seeing an opportunity to acquire human technology, joined the alliance. 37 species against 1. The Galactic War lasted 6 months. The humans did not fight fair. They never had. They used the Ghost Drive to slip behind enemy lines and attack supply depots. They used decoy ships filled with explosives to lure enemy fleets into asteroid fields, then triggered the asteroids with hidden nukes. They hacked Council communication networks and spread false orders, turning allied fleets against each other. They even used biological weapons, not to kill, but to cause a temporary, non-lethal illness that incapacitated ground troops for exactly 48 hours, just long enough for human soldiers to walk past them and capture their bases. The turning point came at the Battle of the Astrion Nebula. The combined Council fleet, over 10,000 ships, massed for a final assault on Earth. They intended to bomb the planet back to the Stone Age. The human fleet, outnumbered 100 to 1, did something impossible. They surrendered. Admiral Marcus Thorne broadcast a single message on all frequencies. We surrender. Our defenses are down. We invite you to land on Earth and accept our formal capitulation. The Council fleet was suspicious, but also arrogant. They had won. Surely, even these mad animals could see that. They sent a delegation of 500 soldiers and diplomats to the surface of Earth. The delegation landed in what used to be Central Park. The humans met them with empty hands and bowed heads. Then the trap closed. The surrender was a lie. The entire surface of Earth had been seeded with a new weapon, the silence field. It was a device that disrupted the quantum entanglement used by all Council FTL drives. Any ship inside Earth's atmosphere could not leave. Any soldier on the ground could not call for help. The 500 delegates were hostages. And the human fleet, which had not actually surrendered, reappeared behind the Council fleet and opened fire from all sides. The Council fleet, trapped between Earth's gravity well and the human warships, had two choices: fight and risk killing their own delegates, or surrender. They chose to fight. The humans made them regret it. By the end of the battle, 9,000 Council ships were destroyed. The remaining 1,000 fled. The 500 delegates were sent back to their home worlds with a message: the next time you call us animals, we will not stop at your fleets. We will come to your homes, and we will show you what real animals look like. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to recognize humanity as a sentient, sovereign species 3 weeks later. Document 4 peace did not come easily. The scars of the war ran deep. The Xylari refused to speak to humans for years. The Vog'nath, humiliated and angry, retreated into isolation. But something unexpected happened. The younger generations of Council species began to seek out humans. Not for war, for stories. Humanity had fought like demons. But they had also shown mercy. They had released prisoners. They had not bombed civilian worlds. They had even sent medical aid to enemy planets after the war ended, treating soldiers who had tried to kill them just days before. The Council species did not understand this. Mercy was not part of their political vocabulary. A young Vog'nath journalist named Sarth traveled to Earth to interview Admiral Marcus Thorne. The old admiral was retired now, living on a farm in Montana, raising cattle and grandchildren. Sarth asked the question that everyone wanted answered: why did you help us after we tried to destroy you? Marcus chewed on a piece of grass and thought for a long time. Because that's what humans do, he finally said. We fight like hell to survive. But once the fight is over, we build. We forgive. Not because we're weak. Because we're strong enough to know that revenge is a circle, and circles just keep turning. Somebody has to break the circle. Sarth wrote an article that spread across the galaxy. It was titled "The Animals Who Became Shepherds." In it, he described the human paradox, a species capable of unimaginable violence, yet also capable of unimaginable compassion. He wrote about human art, human music, human literature. He wrote about the way humans adopted stray animals from other planets, even dangerous ones, and gave them homes. He wrote about the human concept of second chances. The article changed everything. Slowly, painfully, the Council species began to see humans differently. The Xylari, whose entire society was based on rigid hierarchy, were fascinated by human democracy. The Vog'nath, who had never known anything but war, were moved by human poetry. And the Astrion, the Ancient Ones, saw something in humans that they had not seen in any other species: potential. Elena Vance, now the first human counselor, stood in the great circular chamber of the central nexus. She was no longer alone. Behind her stood ambassadors from 20 human colonies, each one representing a different world, a different culture, a different way of being human. The Council had never seen anything like it. 47 species, each with one voice, one government, one agenda. And then the humans, with 20 voices, all arguing with each other, all disagreeing, all laughing and shouting and crying. It was chaos. It was beautiful. Seraphis, the Astrion ambassador, projected a pattern of curiosity. Counselor Vance, your species continues to confuse us. You fought a war to prove you were not animals. Now you act like, forgive me, a herd of confused mammals. Elena laughed. That's the secret, Seraphis. We are animals. We always were. But we're the kind of animals who learn to ask why. Why do we fight? Why do we love? Why do we create? Why do we destroy? The other animals never ask why. They just are. We became human the day we asked the first question. And we've never stopped. Seraphis was silent. Then he asked, what is your next question? Elena looked around the chamber, at the 47 species, at the 20 human delegates, at the vast, star-filled dome above them. Our next question, she said, is the same as our first. Are we alone? And if we're not alone, what do we owe each other? The council had no answer for that. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, the Ancient Ones had no answer. And that, Elena realized, was the greatest victory of all. Not the war, not the surrender of fleets, but the moment when the galaxy looked at humanity and realized that the most dangerous thing about them was not their weapons, or their tactics, or their madness. It was their questions. The story of the animal, human spread across the galaxy. It was told and retold, changed and exaggerated, until it became legend. The legend said that humanity was the only species that the Council feared not because of what they could do, but because of what they could become. The legend said that in every human heart there was a hunter, yes, but also a healer, a builder, a dreamer. And the legend said that the day the Council called humans animals was the day they learned that animals, sometimes, grow teeth. But also, sometimes, they grow wings.